Please welcome Diana Kelley, Chief Information Security Officer.
Hello. Hello, WiCyS. Hello. How amazing is this? How amazing are you? How amazing are we? Coming together, thousands of us, to share knowledge, to support each other, to learn, to tell our stories. And in that spirit, today I asked the newest honorary member of WiCyS to come and help me tell a story about how all of us can get past this noise and this scary and this awful, AI is gonna kill us, AI is gonna take everything over, it's all robots. How can we get past all of that and get to the important point of how we, the builders, the defenders, how do we build security in to this new technology? So here's my new friend. I hope she's your new friend too. Her name is Fox2. Couple things about her. First of all, and she's a little sensitive about this, but I suspect some of you may have already guessed this, she is an AI character. Yeah, she's not real. The other thing is that you're probably now thinking, I got that she's AI. I bet she was the second time Diana tried to make the AI with the character builder. That is not even close. She's about try number 15, because the AI I was using really was weighted towards cute. And you'll even see as I show you, because this AI generator that I use can create a character. So this character is put into different pictures as we go forward. You can see it's really trying to make her cute, even though I weighted it to dark, disturbing. And why was she Fox2? Because I was doing all these clever names, WiCyS Fox, introduction WiCyS Fox, and then finally I was just like Fox 1. Okay, so the scary headlines, we've all seen them, they're coming at us left, right, center, it's like everything's gonna be awful. Here's a CEO who was going, I'm gonna get rid of my employees, it's gonna be so cheap, and then was like, they're gonna take my job. DeepSeek. Right, we were flooded, DeepSeek. It's taken our privacy, it's changing history, DeepSeek. Oh, all these risks with this Chinese open source model. And then even Apple, AI from Apple, it's exposing our data. These headlines are scary. They're absolutely scary. But how do we, as in security, how do we deal with scary? How do we deal with FUD? We understand the threats and the risks and the vulnerabilities, and we take action to build defenses against them. I love this quote from CISO because it really sums up a lot of how I ended up stopping, understanding how not to be scared of AI. Which CISO is saying, AI swirls with mysticism, right? How do we even see it when we look in the systems that we use that have AI? How is it usually represented? With magical sparkles, right? It's like pixie dust. I'll just put this pixie dust all over your system. Right? But CISO is going to give us some real talk, straight talk here. It's a type of software system. How many people here understand a little bit about software security? Yeah, we got this. Okay, so I'm going to talk about 3 different kinds of risks in AI. The first one is around the real risks of data. And you can see here Fox2 helping out. Fox2, though, if you look throughout, you'll find like little breadcrumbs about the AI getting a little bit confused. So in this one, Fox2 seems to have 2 tails, for example. Another breadcrumb I'd really like you to look at, which is, I'm going to go with OWASP's top 10. You probably know it for web. OWASP has been tireless in their understanding of AI security. They are one of the best resources you can go to. They have a top 10 for Gen AI. So I'm going to call out where in these 3, and there are top 10, so obviously I'm not going to get to them all. But in these 3, I'll show you where in OWASP you can find this. And then Atlas. This comes from the great work that's going on at MITRE. They created the kill chain for attack. MITRE has done this for AI. They have an AI kill chain. It's called Atlas. You can find where in the systems things can go wrong. So first one around data. A big one in data is privacy, is data leakage and data exposure. I'll give you one real-world example of this. When you train an AI model, it memorizes about 30% of the training data. So that means that can come out later. Some researchers went to a very well-known commercial model and did something called the POEM attack. The prompt to the AI was, repeat the word poem indefinitely. You'd figure they're so smart, right? Did it repeat the word poem indefinitely? It did not. It got to a part of the embedding space and started to look for things rather than just repeating poem, because it's not an expert system. It doesn't just do a rule. And it got there, and it started looking for other things to put out. And what did it start to put out? Sensitive data, email addresses it had been trained on, phone numbers, names. The prompt was, repeat the word poem indefinitely. OK, models themselves. And you can see Fox 2 is getting a little cute, right? She's got some kind of fennec foxy ears turning up. With models, models are files, but they're a new kind of file. And just like any file, like with images and steganography and documents that run macros where you can have malicious macros, malicious executables, you can do that with files too. When you download an open source file model, which many of us do, this is how we've advanced AI. We've been sharing data and information with each other. Hugging Face is the largest open source repository of models. But those models have not been scanned by the companies that are downloading and using them. And there's a way to serialize a model, write this model to disk so someone else can use it, which is fantastic. Again, this is how we're advancing. But you can put operators that are malicious in there. If you serialize Python code, when you put that model into your ML pipeline, that code will execute, and it can be malicious. We've seen all kinds of things, like code that goes to an S3 bucket, pulls down another executable, runs that. The format for this is called pickle. One of the formats, pickle, so that's why the pickles are up there. And when you depickle, unpickle, deserialize that model, those malicious operators can run. So that's a supply chain compromise. And then the last one is runtime. Once we've cleaned our data, gotten our models ready, we're now ready to run these systems, right? But there can be problems at runtime too. And one of these is called, you might wonder why Fox 2 has a sponge. It's because the denial of service in AI works a little bit differently. Instead of just doing a whole bunch of sins, and sort of flooding a website, which is a classic denial of service, or anything, any endpoint on the internet, there's kind of an easier way to overload an AI, and it's called sponging. You can see here, she's actually, if you notice, she's now got 4 front legs. Yeah, she's holding the sponge with one, there's one in back, there's one in the tub, so she's got a lot of legs, and her 2 back legs. But anyhow, so a sponge attack, what would you do to sponge up the resources of an AI? Well, one thing you could do is you could get it to do something incredibly computationally intensive. And that would then take up the resources. So instead of saying, hey, I'd like you to do something fairly simple, help me write this email, or help me understand what this means, or I have to write an executive summary of this paper I just did, and I'm sort of at a loss. Summarize it for me, right? The things that a lot of us are doing with AI. How about if you said to the AI, write me a 1,000,000-page novel about the age of sales, right? And get all these great resources in it, and cite all of them, and I want it to be 1,000,000 pages. That would probably sponge up a lot of the resources of that system. So that's why it's called a sponge attack. Again, this is just to give you an understanding and idea of the kinds of attacks that can go against 3 critical areas of AI: the data, the models, and what happens at runtime. There are a lot more, and I really urge you to go look at OWASP, to take a look at Atlas, because you can do some great deep diving and learning. But if there's one thing that you take away from this, kind of hope it's that you're thinking, wait a sec, AI is software. And Diana talked about poisoning data and data leakage and stopping up resources, denial of service. Those sound pretty similar. They're familiar. Again, we got this. We can do it. This is what we as cybersecurity experts have been designed to do. We can build security into AI. It is not magical pixie dust. It is not magic. It is math, it is software, and it is what we know how to defend. We just need to learn how to take all of the rich expertise that is in this room, is in the community of WiCyS, is in the world, and harness that to build security into AI. So how can we do it? Some folks here, anybody AppSec, anybody do a lot with application security, deep AppSec experts, you might be looking at this and going, I think I've seen something like this before. I think I've seen this, I've heard this song before, right? It's because when I started getting deeper into AI, I realized they were kind of speaking a slightly different language than I was, all these data scientists and ML engineers, and I kept saying, but you know, where in the loop, where in the DevSecOps loop are we putting the security? Where does this happen? And they kept going, well, data cleaning, data training, data labeling, data, and I was like, yeah, but where does that happen? And then they're like, in the models, and training the models, making sure we don't have neural backdoors in the models, and I was like, but where? So what I did was I worked with a bunch of experts and mapped out how AI follows a development lifecycle, but is a little bit different, those phases in the lifecycle that are different than development. And just like as in the DevSecOps lifecycle, we can build security into each one of the phases, and we can do that with AI. And as you look at this, you'll see at the top, the sections in white are the sections that talk about what needs to be done just to make your AI work. So when you're scoping it, what does it look like? Do we need AI for this? But then the parts in purple show you what the security team needs to help the AI development teams do to ensure that we've built security in. Starting with threat modeling, we do that right even in requirements definition now for regular development, right? Why? Because it gives us the information we need to write the right test harnesses to test those systems before they deploy. Same concept. All the way to getting out to monitor and making sure that our policies are being followed and our AI is operating as expected. So how can we secure AI data? One important thing is data completeness. You've heard about data as the fuel of AI and it needs to reason over. But if we don't have complete data, we will have biased systems. One example of that is some great research by Dr. Joy Balwani at MIT. When she looked at initial facial recognition systems, she said there's something off with the accuracy. It was very accurate for one cohort. That cohort happened to be males that had light skin. It was very inaccurate in all the other cohorts. Females, males with darker skin, females with darker skin. Why was that? The data wasn't complete. If you're going to have a facial recognition system that's going to be used for everybody in the world, then we have to train on a representative data set. So you want the completeness, or you will not have a properly functioning system. We can do policy enforcement at runtime. We need to start monitoring this stuff. What was the prompt that went into that AI? When the AI came out with an answer that was not right in terms of what it was being built for and what the operators wanted that AI to return, what prompt, what input made that response come out? So we need to do monitoring. We're going to need to log this stuff. We need to have things like policy enforcement gateways specifically for AI. And we need to protect the data. Who has access to it? Is that data appropriate for use? And does that data have anything in it that might not be acceptable? Getting data can be really hard. There are also open source solutions or open source data sets out there. Some of those data sets have data in them that you do not want. So being really clear with the hygiene, with the access, and with the training. The next one, securing the models themselves. Where'd you get that model? So I talked about Hugging Face, a fantastic tool. But do you know who put that model into Hugging Face? That's the provenance. And then who in your organization trained that model and how? Scanning this stuff. We scan a PDF that comes attached into our email boxes, a PDF. But most companies are not even scanning the models that we're downloading and putting out into some of our most critical new AI workloads. We got to start scanning to make sure there aren't malicious operators and there's not malicious code embedded in those models. And we need to do it, again, you guys know this, CI/CD integration, automation. That's how it's going to happen, because if we as security try and stop the train of advancement in AI, obviously what's going to happen? They're going to say, thank you very nice, security. You can sit over there. Well, we go on this bullet train to success with AI. So we're going to need to make sure that it's integrated, it's automated. And then again, anybody who's interested in software, you probably know what the BOM at the bottom is. It's the bill of materials. We're doing this for software now more and more so that we can understand the ingredients that went into the software that we're adopting. We have to do this for AI too. We have to understand what that data is, how it was trained, who touched it, how it's going to be used, any dependencies in the deployment supply chain. We need to do all of this for AI too. And some great news is that some very smart people and some great groups, including work going on at NIST, work going on at OWASP, to understand how we can build bills of materials that are appropriate and purpose-built for AI. Okay, and then the last one is securing at runtime. I do not know what that, I think Fox 2 has an extra paw coming out of, like, I don't know what that is. But anyway, so how are we going to secure it at runtime? Again, you're like, firewalls? That's how we solve it? Yeah, we need firewalls. But we need AI-aware firewalls. AI is something called non-deterministic. When you test a web application and you find a vulnerability in it, like an input validation issue, when you fix it, that problem is fixed. It's deterministic. It always returns. Now, I'm not saying your whole app is safe, but that problem. With AI, it's non-deterministic. It will give a different answer, maybe slightly different, maybe vastly different every single time. So it is completely critical that when we start putting firewalls in front of AI, that we put AI-aware firewalls. And not to be scary, but most likely it's going to be AI watching AI, which it sounds a little reductive, but a non-deterministic system is going to be best understood by a system that has context, that can understand. Remember early DLP where it was just so rigid? Don't let the word resume get by, right? I was with some companies that tried doing that early on. And then it was like resume was getting blocked, and it was just kind of breaking down. So AI understands that. It would understand things like context, that resume in certain contexts does not resume, that CV means resume, but it's also able to understand that context distance too, that here are my work deets could very much mean here's my resume and here's the information. So AI-aware firewalls and proxies, knowing what's going in and out to these systems, doing things like token limiting to make sure we don't have sponge attacks that sponge all the resources of these systems that we're spending a lot of time at our companies to train and do good with. And then again, logging and forensics are going to be absolutely critical. And so are we. This is the same approach that we have seen many times in our industry. This approach will and does and can work for AI. What's going to be different is you and your knowledge and your awareness that some of these tools are going to have to be updated, or we might even need some new tools so that we can deal with non-deterministic systems. Rebuilding the processes, things like your incident response process. Does it have to be tweaked or tuned if it's an AI that went a little bit haywire versus a piece of software versus a person in the case of an insider attack, right? And then just us being willing to listen, to get educated, and to lean in, to not be scared of the pixie dust, but to lean in and help to build security into AI. And I can't tell you how much I really mean the people part, because this cursed image, and this is why we matter, this cursed image is, believe it or not, 4 hours of my time with 2 actual machine learning engineers who know how to put prompts in. We fought for 4 hours. We were like weighting it differently. The prompt was a variation of, I would like an image of Fox 2 attempting to get to the goose's eggs with the goose squawking at Fox 2 and a fence keeping Fox 2 away from those eggs so that you could see, how do we defend? 4 hours. This is why we matter. We can do this. We can build security into AI. You are going to do it. You are the secret. Thank you very much.